I left my family behind after they betrayed me. Fiction. I, 25M, grew up in a pretty tight-knit family. I have a brother, 24M, and sister, 22F, and was very close to my parents, 52M, 50F, spending every holiday there most weekends during college. We grew up on the suburbs of Minneapolis and all went to the University of Minnesota. A year ago, if you would have told me where I would be at today, I would have laughed at your pessimism. But here we are. I met Stacy, 24F, during my sophomore year of college, and we dated until I proposed last December. She said yes, and we were planning on getting married next summer and spending our lives in Minnesota. But in April, my life fell apart. I came home early to find my brother in bed with my fiancée. I freaked out and left and kicked her out of our shared apartment. Days later, she came back and said she had fallen in love with my brother over the years and that she was sorry but was where her heart was. She moved out, and I blocked her and my brother. Initially, the rest of my family took my side and banned my brother from family events. I slowly began to heal. I had a work opportunity come up. My boss pulled me in and said that he had suggested I lead the office in Chicago. They are kind of mess, and the company wanted someone from headquarters to take over. I couldn't believe it, but I said yes. I never thought I'd leave Minnesota, but thought it was time for a change. This all happened in early November, and the plan was to move after Christmas. My plan was to tell the family at Thanksgiving and then spend Christmas one last time before moving. But of course, my ex and brother had to stick the knife in one last time before they left. When I showed up for Thanksgiving at my parents' house, there were several cars as the whole extended family comes over, so I didn't even notice my brother's car. I enter the house, and the first thing I see is my ex and brother talking with my aunt. I freeze as my aunt calls for my mom to come in. My brother and ex won't look me in the eye. My mom and dad come in, greet me, and ask me to sit down in the living room. I sit away from my brother and ex, but I see the rest of the family, including my sister, sits closer to them. My mom starts explaining that what they did was wrong and terrible, but that she hates that the family is split. She says I need to work toward forgiveness. My ex and brother both started to apologize, but I put my hand up. I turned to my sister and asked her if she agreed. She had tears in her eyes, but nodded. Asked my dad the same question. He said yes pretty firmly. I was alone. I got up and walked out. I heard a couple people yelling after me, but I didn't respond. I drove to a McDonald's, ate a pretty shitty Thanksgiving meal, and went through my options and decided cutting them off was my best bet. I had saved plenty. I didn't need them, and they didn't know where I was moving. I blocked them all on my phone, but it was my parents' plan that I was on, so I turned the phone in the next week and got on my own plan. Double my cell bill, but it was worth it to get a new number. I blocked them on social media, and I told my boss that I wanted to move to Chicago early. Talked to the landlord of the apartment I was looking to rent, and he was happy to let me in early. I moved to Chicago on December 15th, and my family had no idea. A few friends knew, and it must have slipped because last night I got an Instagram DM from what I assume is my mom on a new profile asking why I would move without telling them, and that the family missed and loved me, and that I needed to still make time for Christmas. I responded by saying that she only had one son now and that I was no longer family. I then blocked her new account and locked down my profile and other social media. I've been looking to change my last name as well. I've left that life behind, and I'm excited to see what Chicago has to offer. Next story. So, I thought I would just get my story out there, not really asking for advice, just venting. I'm a male in my late 40s, was married for about 2 decades, and we have kids, who are now all young adults, so no co-parenting. I am pretty much in C with my ex-wife at this point. The only contact we have is kids-related, and it is very minimal. She seems to have finally resigned herself that we are completely over. We live in Europe, and English is not my first language. She cheated on and off with an old boyfriend for a very long time, years, bad boy she was dating before she met me. He cheated and ghosted her back then, and we met later that same year. I didn't really catch her, and she didn't really come clean either. It was a mix of the two, as I knew something was up, and I pressured her on a Sunday evening after dinner. I was in complete shock. My whole world came crashing down, and for a month she kept talking to him on Snapchat, while I begged her to reconcile. She finally broke it off, but was heavily trickle-truthing me on how big the affair was, and I desperately wanted to believe her, so I ate it up like a chump. AP was single at the time the affair ended, but was married when it started, and I'm hurt by the fact the OBS didn't think it was the right move to let me know the affair continued for years after their divorce, and I didn't even know AP existed. Ex-wife just could not understand how things could not go back to the way they were. I have always been athletic. I have played both team sports and individual, such as running, Ironmans, and CrossFit. My mental and physical health really took a hit. First, I lost a lot of weight, then put it back on, and then some, as I kept eating like I was still extremely active, but I wasn't. I was heavily suicidal, had to go on strong antidepressants, even bought a rope to hang myself with at one point. I finally had enough about 8 to 9 months later, as she was super passive about the whole thing, never took initiative in anything, just shut down any conversation I wanted to have, and tried to rug sweep the whole thing. She is extremely competent at cognitive dissonance, and her mental gymnastics are world-class. She trickled-truthed the F*** out of me, gaslit me, and just flat-out lied to my face with a stone-cold, expressionless front. She never really took responsibility. She tried blaming me for her affair, but that S***T didn't go far with me, as I knew I was always the one pursuing her, not just sexually but with everything, going on dates, talking, doing activities, and spending time. She turned me down 97% of the time, and when I look back, never once surprised me in a good way or went out of her way to do something special for me. I guess I grew up in a dysfunctional family and went after a woman that was as emotionally available as my mother, because it was familiar. During these 8 to 9 months, the affair eventually got known to my family and friends, as I couldn't really hide how I was feeling, and my younger brother, I call him the Rat now, got involved by getting in touch with my ex, and claimed he was worried I was abusing her. He based this on witnessing the end of an argument between me and ex where I got really angry and called her names, and I left the house slamming a door behind me and went for a 1-hour walk. Ex-wife let him know that was not the case, but because me and my ex had a pretty typical avoidant anxious relationship, he assumed she was a battered wife and was stuck with me. So he pushed the subject a couple of more times, while my ex said he was wrong. She of course did this in a very passive way, so he didn't believe her and recruited my mother to his cause. My mother is an Olympic gold medalist when it comes to mental gymnastics, passive-aggressive behavior, and making excuses for other people mistreating me when I was a kid, so she gladly hopped on the bandwagon. All of this was unknown to me for a few months, but I was desperately looking for support at the time, and all the conversations with my mother just turned very argumentative. She kept making excuses for my ex, and eventually I got really frustrated. My wife was in the room when I had a phone call, and finally came clean about my brother's messages, showed them to me. So I blocked him, his wife, and my parents. But I sent my parents a very long email on how this hurt me and how I felt betrayed. I never got a reply. My ex moved out in the summer of 2022, and my mother found out and called her to let her know she would always love my ex. She was family and would be there for her. This was months after I blocked her. I filed for divorce, and where I live, it is granted rather quickly if there is infidelity. And I had proof, screenshots of messages from AP, so it was uncontested 50-50 split. Infidelity has no effect on divorce here, except speed, and we divorced about 2 years ago. She did not pursue a relationship with the AP. I'm kind of sad about that, as they deserved each off. I have dated and was in a relationship for a few months, but I was just not in a good headspace, so we broke it off. I couldn't commit and had huge trust issues. Ex is single as far as I know, and frankly I think, and hope, she will head down the same path as her mother, who cheated on her dad and has been single for almost 3 decades, and is now retired, lives alone with a cat, and has no friends. My ex is extremely passive, always waits for life to happen to her. If I didn't get stuff done, like buy a new house, cars, plan vacations, paint the living room, buy new kitchen appliances, and so on, it wouldn't get done at all. I know AP pursued her for the affair. She's just as guilty as him, though, as she let it happen. So unless Prince Charming comes knocking at her door, or she miraculously gets off her ass, stops feeling sorry for herself, and starts making things happen for herself, she will end up like her mom. I'm finally getting back on my feet. Single, but I've been off antidepressants since Easter this year, have been hitting the gym heavily since this summer, started reconnecting with old friends, and started a new job. So while I feel I'm still a way off, I am on the right track. The kids have rooms at both my ex's place, and come and go as they want. They spend more time here, though. I unblocked my parents about 7 months ago and have had no attempt from them to reconnect with me. Last time I talked to them, they took no accountability for hurting me by believing me to be abusive and making excuses for my wife. My father is very old school, retired, and just follows my mother on everything. Lets her take the lead. Why they believe my brother over me is just mind-blowing to me. As I have always been a stand-up guy, never had problems while my brother broke into his school when he was 13, started drinking around that time, and my mother had to pick him up from less than savory places in his late teens. He went to rehab a few times. It didn't take until he met his now wife in rehab. She was married at the time, had 2 kids with her ex-husband, and my brother and her had an affair and are now married and have 2 kids. He had to get my parents to buy 50% of his house, while he has 25% and his wife 25%, because they needed room for their kids and could not buy it themselves. I, on the other hand, moved out around 20 and have been independent since then. I have a master's degree and a respectable job. I could go on, but I feel this is already long enough. Like I said, I don't really want advice, as I feel I'm crawling out of this abyss I've been in the last 3 years, but I just wanted to get this off my chest.